Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today, and which will be the beginning of our weekly updates. What is happening in the blockchain space? How is this promising technology shaping the world? And how is Devvio supporting this technological revolution? That's why I invite you to follow us and keep up with the weekly updates. And today we have Tom Anderson, founder of Devvio, and Belém Tamayo. I've been part of Devvio's team from day one, and I'm very happy to be your host today. So hi, Tom.
Hey, Belém. So exciting doing our first episode. So give everybody kind of a feel of what's going on at Devvio and our kind of views of what's going on in the blockchain space in general. So yeah, it's exciting.
Exactly. Yes, I think it's exciting too. So let's jump right in and tell us about your background. For those that don't know you, tell us about you and what makes you start at Devvio.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm Devvio's founder, and I'm an experienced entrepreneur. So my first business was actually a robotics business. And in that business, I raised about $34 million. I took the company public. We created the world's first consumer 3D touch device. So it was a robot that added a very realistic sense of touch into computing. And we started with robots that were expensive, got them down to a consumer price point, and then got into the video game industry. So a lot of my experience in my career was in the video game space. And in the video game space, we licensed on the order of about $100 million of video game development. We published over 100 video game titles, all the way up to AAA titles. And we got full source code to third-party publisher titles, all the way up to the biggest publishers. So we licensed games like Tiger Woods Golf, Madden Football, NBA Live, Need for Speed, Mass Effect, the Battlefield series, Half-Life 2, Left 4 Dead, Team Fortress 2, Orange Box, Dirt, Grid. And some of those are top 10 franchises of all time. And so that was an exciting business, and it was really neat how the technology, the hardware, the touch technology tied into, video games that we licensed. And then to make a long story short, sold our IP to Facebook. And so that was my first business. And so, so that kind of leads into Devvio, which is my second, big business.
And could you give us a little bit of a picture of what is the vision of Devvio now, right? Where do you envision this baby going?
Yeah, so Devvio in general was founded really with some big, large principles in mind. We envision technology. There's a lot of what the blockchain space was founded on as well. It was inspired by the original Bitcoin white paper. So technology that lets any two parties interact and transact without working through a central authority. Anybody can independently audit a transaction. Anybody can independently audit the entire chain. So from a technological perspective, it was driven by a lot of the principles in the original Bitcoin white paper. But then the practical kind of implementation of it and the practical uses also have really a big vision behind it. We want the technology to give people control over their value and their data. Blockchain to me is one of the few technologies we'll see in our lifetime that really fundamentally changes computing on par with the internet. Where the internet was a disruptive platform that lets people transfer data, blockchain is a disruptive platform that lets people transfer value. And if you look at it at that most basic level, that's where we saw world-changing implications when we started the company almost 7 years ago. But and so the technology then, if you let people control their data and control the value they create, that really is world changing. So people can, for example, control the value that they do create. Our global president Ray always tells a story that he learned where people that make the real value in cereal, the farmers that create the materials, only get a few cents of dollars spent at the grocery store. Imagine if you doubled that and how life-changing that could be to them. And they're the ones creating a lot of the value, right? And there's too many middlemen in general in the world that take more of the value than I think is deserved in an ideal, kind of setting. We also want people to be able to control their identity, and control the access to their communication channels, have personal responsibility online and reputation that you can build up. We want people ultimately to be able to fulfill their potential. And a big part of our vision is that, everybody in the world has the resources that they need to be able to fulfill their potential. And we also have, a lot of aspects of what we're doing that tie into ESG and improving the world, both socially and environmentally. And so I see our platform as being a platform that really is the trusted source of truth and the trusted source of data for the world's environmental, social, and governance interactions. So that's kind of the bigger vision aspects of Devvio. And then we have shorter term implementations, but that's if we're successful, that's where we hope to go.
Amazing, the trusted source of data, and those are big claims, right? And my background is in venture capital, and I've seen amazing technology and amazing ideas.
So actually, why don't we do that? Why don't you? This is our first episode. Why don't you tell people about yourself too? That would be great.
Okay,
I know you weren't expecting that. So for everybody's reference watching this, we're planning on doing this weekly. We want to get information out, our Devvio's kind of views on, what's going on in the blockchain world, longer term vision of what we're doing. Belém, as she said, has been an amazing team member and here from day one, getting things going with us, head of our international sales. So I'm excited to, kind of coordinate with her and do the interviews, each week. So she didn't give me the questions ahead of time. We talked about kind of, and we will talk about topics, but it'd be kind of a natural discussion. So with all of that, a little bit understanding, yeah. So I'm putting you on the spot, but that's the nature of the beast, right? So
exactly.
Tell people about yourself too.
So my background is in venture capital, and I'm very passionate about technology and how technology can disrupt new models, right? Like how can you apply it in other countries where they really need this type of technology? So I always take a look at what is the global impact of what I'm researching, and how can I be a connector between what we're creating, for example, here to a country like Mexico, right? Where does it fit? So that's a big passion of me, and I enjoy doing that type of work. And where I was going was, so I've seen tons of technology with this background, and it all comes to execution, right? Like the idea and the concept is valuable, but how can you execute it? And you need a really good team for that, right? So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, that sounds good. So why don't I start at the beginning, just give a little bit of background on how we got Devvio going. So when we very first started, I read the Bitcoin white paper, like I said, and saw just enormous potential, and the principles in it really are inspiring. And I'm a cypherpunk at heart. I think I like the idea of people controlling their own value. I like the idea of getting rid of the good old boy club that drives so much of the value in the world, and let people contribute and share equally in fairly in their contributions. So the Bitcoin white paper spoke to me, and I really liked the concepts. But when we started really looking at building a business in the space, there was no technological solution that solved all the real world problems that you have to solve to build a blockchain business. So just in addition to having kind of the ideals that we have, we've also, and I've always been, I think, practical in a business sense, and I'm an experienced businessman, in how we wanted to grow the blockchain technology. And there was no technology that really had high speed, high throughput, cost effectiveness, stability, ease of integration, and so given that there was no technology that really solved all those problems, we designed our own protocols from scratch. And so I kind of sat down and designed a lot of the blockchain architecture and the kind of core initial algorithms, submitted hundreds of pages of patents, and then we started bringing on the technical team to implement it. So we brought on Nick Williams and Sean McKinney, were kind of our two first original folks. Bill Anderson as kind of a CTO level lead, brought on Ray Quintana, my partner in growing everything, you Belém. So we were kind of the original crew, that were getting stuff going in the back, the very early days. And Nick and Sean really are the ones that implemented the core architecture and core implementation, and designs that really took the original vision and the original algorithms and made them work. And when we first started, we said, we think this is going to work. We think we can hit millions of transactions per second, but we need your help to prove it. And so if you guys can implement it, we'll give you some stock in the company, and join the team. If you can hit 1 million transactions per second, we'll double your stock. And they did it. And so they got it working, and we kind of proved out internally that we could hit that really high throughput, have it very cost effective. And then we started expanding and started looking to grow the company, the technology I'll start with in ways that I think really fit well with, again, the practical needs of how blockchain is going to ultimately grow into its future. Right now, I feel blockchain is in its infancy. I mean, even years later from kind of the, decade later from the Bitcoin white paper, more than a decade, and then years from when Ethereum came out and you had the first ICOs and then all the DeFi work that's happened since then. I mean, it's still kind of like where the internet was in the mid-90s, like very early stage. A lot of the winners haven't really come out yet. You saw recently with the FTX stuff that, there's real problems in the space that need to be fixed. And so we started originally preparing or developing a system that was practical, high speed, high throughput, cost effective. One of the really important things that Nick and Sean developed was the philosophy of our original RESTful API and how applications can easily tie in. I could talk about that more in a minute too, but how applications and developers can easily tie in with kind of traditional Web 2 expertise and strategies. So that's really compelling. And then the other, Devvio, is the team and the folks that we've been working with and growing the company with. It's and the culture as well. The culture has always been like a really kind of critical aspect of Devvio's growth. So, one of our team members, for example, my partner in growing the business is Ray Quintana, very experienced venture capitalist. He was one of 2 general partners at the best performing early stage venture capital company in the country, according to Preqin, and just amazing person to work with, very solid with strategy, business strategies, taking a lot of companies up to, from beginning to real successes. So he's been invaluable in kind of really growing Devvio and helping us to set our strategies. And Ray and I think, I think one of my strengths is strategy as well. And we very often are thinking the same thing or coming up with kind of the same kind of ideas and everything. So Ray's been a great partner. And when he first saw Devvio, he described it as one of the best opportunities he's seen in his entire career. And so we're the only company that he actually invested with his feet, so to speak, rather than just his money. So Ray joined us, and he's been full-time working at Devvio for 5 years. We have another very experienced venture capitalist on our team, Will Stewart, one of the probably most impressive resumes I've seen. And so Will, again, a very experienced venture capitalist. He's invested into over 400 companies. He's invested over $5 billion into tech. One of the most connected people that I've met. Actually just had lunch with him about a week ago, and he was actually telling me some of the background that I hadn't heard. And he was describing to me how he got his first investments into his fund from Paul Allen and Bill Gates, things like that. So just really, really impressive fellow. Very, bright, very good at strategy as well. So just a great part of our team. And he's led a lot of kind of the initial vision in the ESG side of, what we're doing. We also have folks on our team that just have just amazing careers and experience. So, for example, General Vincent Stewart, the former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency and deputy commander of U.S. Cyber Command, has been an advisor for years. He felt that we solve many of the problems that cybersecurity professionals face today. So he was very excited about our company and joined us. I was on the board for a number of years, still an active advisor. We have other advisors like Chris Church, the former CEO of Swift, Mike DiPietro, the former head of blockchain at VMware. And then, amazing technical team with, Mike or with Nick and Sean and Bill that I described. We have another member of our team that's one of our most important kind of recent additions is Jason Murkowski. Jason is a ringer. Like, he's the kind of person you can really just build a company around. He was the head of the Amazon Kindle project at Amazon, worked with Jeff Bezos, and built not only the Amazon hardware, but he built the Amazon Kindle marketplace. And so Jason has been a really compelling addition, not only to the team, but in the direction we're going. Here you have somebody that joined us that didn't have a lot of blockchain expertise, traditional, kind of Web 2 expertise. came in, just hit the ground running, given our RESTful API, hired a traditional Web 2 team, and most of the kind of big efforts that we're moving forward that are built on top of the core, like our Glassblock marketplace, the DevX web app, the exchange that we're building that's a non-custodial exchange, all were built by traditional Web 2 teams, by Jason. So again, he hit the ground running, has really been an amazing part of the team. We've got Adam Greenhood on our team as the head of marketing. We've got Craig Kornblau, former president of Universal Pictures, another advisor. So, just across the board, a world-class team. I feel honored to be working with the folks that I'm working with. Folks like those don't stay at a company like ours unless there's kind of really true potential. I mean, they're folks that could go really anywhere. So in addition to kind of the fun of working with those folks, the culture that we've built, I think it also gives us a lot of credibility, and it's also a lot of the expertise that we're growing the company off of. So
that is amazing. So it seems like in your, as a strategist, you have been aligning all your pieces for success. And we know that it doesn't take, it's not overnight. It will take time. And I'm very excited to be part of it. And people must be excited to receive the solutions and technology. And what about the people that they are kind of skeptical, right? They don't understand really the value behind the technology. How would you try to empathize and also share that your point of view?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a couple ways to answer that, right? There's people who are maybe skeptical about Devvio, and then there's people who are skeptical about blockchain and blockchain technology. So why don't I start with the latter? I'll start with just people who are skeptical of blockchain, technology. So you hear kind of big figures like Warren Buffett, for example, kind of say there's not a lot of value in blockchain. And I just saw an article a couple of days ago pop up that said that kind of likened blockchain to, the old tulip, hype in the Netherlands centuries ago. So these kind of famous, cycles where things go way up and then go way down. And in some cases don't really have any kind of underlying value. So I think the main thing that people that don't really believe in the blockchain space understand is the kind of core fundamental value that blockchain solves. And it's a real innovation, and it is world changing. I personally don't have any doubts that it's going to be as significant to the world as the internet has been. It actually kind of reminds me of, those early skeptics of the internet, right? There's a famous clip, on YouTube you can watch where David Letterman is interviewing Bill Gates. He says, why do we need the internet? Like, it's kind of dumb. And Bill Gates is explaining it, saying, no, you could, listen to a baseball game. He's like, have you heard of the radio? And so sometimes it's hard for kind of mainstream, understanding of technologies that have this level of implication before it's gotten to the point where things are kind of being used the way they're going to be. And again, that's why, I feel, the blockchain space is really, it's in infancy, like the internet in the mid 1990s. So the main thing I think people don't realize about the blockchain space who are skeptics is that it solves the double spend problem. When you look at a lot of the financial value in the world, it comes from just people assigning value on something like gold, right? Gold has value because we believe it has value, and gold is scarce and has limited, amounts. There's a show called Gold Rush where you can watch people take gold out of the ground, and they go through these massive efforts of taking these, tons of dirt and running it through these machines just to get gold dust, that they turn into, gold, whatever, in any other form. And so when you look at the effort that's gone into that, like why would humanity put value on gold? Well, it was a way to kind of measure value between people. And so then you say, well, now we have this digital age, and why don't we measure value digitally in that same way? And we do through trusted parties, so there's banks, of course, that manage everything digitally these days. There's companies like PayPal, that manage things digitally, but those rely on a central authority, somebody that you trust. You have your bank account, and there's not a pile of money, sitting at the bank that represents the dollars I have in my account. Especially with the way the bank system works, fractionalized lending, and so banks are just running things digitally, and PayPal runs things digitally. But again, the thing that's missing there is you're trusting a central authority. So if you could have a system where you could have kind of provable scarcity like gold, and not have something that's easy to replicate and copy like gold, right? Like if I send you a digital dollar in an email, what's to keep you from forwarding that on to 20 other people? Because it's trivial to copy ones and zeros. But what Bitcoin did that was clever is it said, here's a ledger of everything that's happened. Every transaction that's happened in the ledger, is you know, tied to all the transactions before, including through things like hashing, where it creates really a truly immutable copy, unchangeable copy, and then through that entire record, you really get a list of where all the money is gone, and you end up with something that's just as trackable and provably scarce as gold is. And anybody that's a skeptic of Bitcoin or a skeptic of the crypto space, not necessarily blockchain itself, but and other uses outside of currencies, cryptocurrencies. But anybody's a skeptic of that, I think, doesn't really kind of understand that fundamental concept and the fundamental value. The idea that you can prevent people from double spending digital items. All of a sudden you have gold that's weightless, right? And you can transfer it instantly around the world, without any cost. And the ramifications of that, just like the internet, in the mid 1990s, are sometimes hard to fully understand. But again, take a step back. The idea that you can have weightless gold that can be transferred around the world instantly, that's provable where it's been, and who owns it, is just an incredibly powerful concept. And then beyond cryptocurrencies, then blockchain, probably for another episode, can be used in many other ways. So the use of blockchain to create a sense of trust in the ESG space, which I would argue is the biggest challenge in the entire ESG space. And ESG is, one of the biggest challenges that humanity's ever faced. Again, big statements, but the level of blockchain kind of impact, those types of problems, is enormous as well. So that's kind of an answer on the skeptics of the blockchain side of things. I'll just finish out, on the Devvio side of things. A lot of people have described us, who really then get to know us, as the best project they've never heard of, right? And so again, we've described kind of big claims about where we're going and the impact I think we can have, and how is it possible that this kind of small company, is going to be able to accomplish the types of things we want to accomplish. And it's because we've made design choices that are practical for the real world, and the way the real world operates. We can create any number of shards or independent blockchains that can be customized to any given application. You can have easy to integrate applications built on top of our blockchain. So again, the fact that you have a real ringer, Jason Minkowski, that had Web 2 experience only and built, all of our most important applications in less than a year, and they're all out and usable right now, glassblock.io, is really compelling. And those are the kinds of things, high speed, then millions of transactions per second, sub-settlement, sub-second settlements, and then cost. It ultimately always comes down to cost. So millions of times less expensive than Ethereum, like millions of times less expensive, so millions of times less expensive than Ethereum. And then we're also on the order of 1/3 billionth the energy usage of Bitcoin, as an example as well. So all of those characteristics, those are the things that are going to become needed as blockchain matures into being used for real world applications. And Devvio has, significant lead time in those things. So I feel like, we're going to be one of the, even though we're small now, I feel like we're going to be one of the big players in the space.
That's amazing. And that's a topic I would like to dive deeper in the next episode. Like how is Devvio different from other protocols, right? And all these people wondering, why Devvio, right? So give them an insight of what we're doing in a technical dive. That'll be really interesting for everybody. And also another topic for the next video will be how they say, well, Web 2, Web 3, are you getting rid of Web 2? No, and if not, then how are you doing it, right? How is the Web 3 connecting to the Web 2? what you're just talking about. So
Yeah,
that
the world isn't gonna just, there's not gonna be a switch that flips and all of a sudden everything's running on Web3 and blockchain, based databases and, things like that. It's going to be a transition. And especially from the user interface side, Web2 is established and people are used to working how they work, those types of things. So you have to mold to that. I also think, if we're taking a step back, great, kind of first episode, great. Thank you for kind of leading questions, and excited to do more episodes. I see us giving updates on what Devvio is up to, what types of things we're working on. I also see, I think one of the things that Devvio has done consistently is set its own path. The crypto space in general is, ironically, a very follower mentality. It's a disruptive, anti-establishment, philosophy that drove its kind of initial philosophies and growth. But now, people in the crypto space are like, well, this is how things are done. And again, it's ironic because the whole crypto space is, saying the way things were done in the past aren't how they're supposed to be done in the future. And Devvio has kind of said, well, these concepts make sense. Any two parties can independently audit a transaction or independently audit the chain. There's no There's no central authority overseeing transactions, like things like that. But then there's aspects that that were in original designs that don't make sense. Things like proof of work that weren't designed for this scale. I mean, it's an absurd concept at this point. Proof of stake to me is one of the most horrible concepts in history, with a lot of potential to do a lot of damage. I mean, you could see where things transition from proof of work to proof of stake, but it's a horrible, horrible concept. And so from the beginning, we've had kind of our own vision and view that over time has really, a lot of the concepts we've been touting for years that people said you're crazy 4 or 5 years ago. Now everyone's saying like, this is, how it's starting to be done. And there's other concepts that I think are going to become more and more compelling in the future. So I think, Devvio really is a thought leader in the space. And I think over time, more and more of the things that we've been pushing really are coming to fruition because we took a practical perspective to the original vision of what blockchain represents. And so I think presenting that vision to people over time is going to be an exciting part of what we do in these interviews. So
exactly, it would not be only about the updates on the blockchain space in general, but how Devvio is setting the pace for others to do it right.
Yep,
and you guys are going to become the most interesting people in the room because you're going to have a lot of information, inside information.
Totally. Yeah, so I'm excited to talk about other aspects of our business, our gaming and NFT business, our ESG business. So yeah, lots of exciting content to come.
Yeah, stay tuned and don't miss it out. And I believe this is a good ending of the first video. And
yeah, perfect.
See everybody who's watching. Thank you for your time and see you in the next video.
Great.
Follow us on Telegram and LinkedIn and Facebook. There's where we're going to be posting these videos.
Okay. Perfect. Great. Thanks, Belim.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.